Hi again, folks. Let's have some fun. Let's go ahead and put a character in and get the player moving around. So if you haven't done so yet, we're going to put the character in the game, just like we did the water. So under your standard assets, click on that, and then we want the characters folder, third person character, prefabs, third person controller. So I'm just going to click and drag him into the scene and drop him down where I want him. To zoom right in on him, hold your cursor over the scene view and hit the F key. That'll zoom right to him. Okay, so notice that he has this green kind of capsule around him. That is his collider. So that's what's going to prevent him from running through objects or going through the terrain. So he has all these pre-made scripts already on him. He has a rigid body, which means he is going to be using the world's gravity. And then he's got an animator component. So right now, if we go ahead and play test by clicking play, okay, this is my first play test, so it may take a minute for it to load. Can't really see what's going on. Okay, the character will be moving around when you use the arrow keys or WASD. However, the camera is not in the right spot, so we have to parent the camera. If I were to make changes right now while I'm playtesting, nothing will save because we indeed are playtesting. The Unity is programmed to not save any changes during playtesting. So if we stop the playtest, all the values go right back to where they were. So one good feature that Unity has to make sure that you do not make changes or accidentally make changes while playtesting is to actually change some of the preferences. So go to Edit in the menu bar, Preferences, and then under Colors, you have this Play Mode tint. Default is gray. You can actually change this to kind of just give you a notification of when you're playtesting or not. I'm just going to change it to my favorite color, orange, but you can pick whatever color you want. So now when you playtest, notice that all of the windows change a specific color. That's just a notifier that you are playtesting and you don't want to make changes. Well, you could make changes, but if you wanted them to save, they won't. So you either have to write them down or copy the properties of the object and then paste them in after you're done playtesting. Anyways, okay, so let's get that character to work with the camera. If you do not have a main camera in your scene, go into Create in the hierarchy and Camera. Okay, you should have one in there, but if for some reason you delete it or it's not there, just create a new one. If you do create a new one, it is important to go up into the tag and make it the main camera. You should only have one camera in your scene. All right, so here's my camera. Definitely not in the right spot. And this is where parenting comes in. We have parent and child objects. We actually already have that with the third person controller. If I hit this triangle, all three of these objects, the character is actually called Ethan, FYI. So he has a skeleton, his glasses, and his body. The body is actually the mesh or his skin. And then he has a skeleton, which are the bones that make the animation work. So all three of these are child objects of the parent third person controller. That's just the relationship that they have. So that means when the third person controller moves, for example, all these other ones move with them because they're child or children of the third person controller. So that's what we need to do to the main camera. We want the main camera to move when we move Ethan or the third person controller. So all we got to do is click and drag, drop it on the third person controller, just like this where it's highlighted, drop it. The only thing that will happen is that it indents, showing you that it's part of this object. Now, if I were to minimize this, you don't see the main camera here because it's a child of the third person controller. So now it's going to move with the character, but it's not in the right location. For a third person view, we want it to be right behind it. So I'm going to go up into the transform component of the main camera, click on the gear, and I'm going to reset the position. That'll put it at its feet. Now I can just use the transform or move tool in the top left and move it to where I want it. Okay, something like that. If you want to rotate it, use the tool that's next to the move tool, and you can kind of rotate it down by grabbing an axis and just pointing it. All right, something like that. So that is enough to make the main camera follow the character. If you want first person, you can just take the camera and put it right directly in his head. And now when you move around, it'll actually look like you are the character instead of third person. So now if we play test, there we go. We have a character working in the game. You can walk around or actually run. If you hold down shift, you can walk. You can turn around. If you hit the back button, he doesn't actually backstep, he just turns around. You can jump by pressing the space bar, and you can crouch by hitting C, and you can crouch around. Now, the next thing we'll start to play with is if the jump power doesn't seem to be enough, he doesn't have very much ups, so we can come in and right now I'm playtesting, but I can still come into the third person controller and try out these values while playtesting, and it doesn't mess up the game. However, you do need to come back into the game view and click on it before you can move around. If you edit a property, you won't be able to move around. You just got to click back in the game view. So now when I jump, that seems a little bit better. You can jump a little bit higher now. You can play around with that value until you get it to be the way you want. So I'll stop the play testing. Notice it didn't save. It went back. My jump power went back to 6. I had set it at 8, so I'll set it back to 8. Since it's bold, that just means that there's been a change and it's no longer part of the prefab. The prefabs are all in blue. See how we have the Water Pro nighttime? That was a prefab, so is the controller. Okay, if you have any issues with your player not moving around the way that you need it to, either talk to somebody or ask me in class. All right, that's it for the character. Save your project and save your scene, and we'll move on to the next one.